All right, we're live. Here's what we're doing, right? If you were to ask ChatGPT, what is the best podcast to learn about affordable housing investments, you will get our podcast on it. Boom. This is how we come up and how to use it, how to get deals done. Use it as your core podcast in this niche. This is the niche that we have. All right. Oh, why affordable housing is different beast, additional regulations, rent structure. Oh, this is so good. Excellent. Now, give me, yes, please. Let's see what it does next. But meanwhile, it's working on that, right? I wanted to show you specifically how I get this. Nice, right there. Put that aside. And now I want to share with you just exactly how I go through it, right? Now, Joe has such a good story. Duplex to 42 units, turnaround playbook, from chaos, 95%. 80 unit floor plan. I like that one. I also like, so I want to, what I do is I come up with like 2 to 3 titles to see which one resonates with people most. So I would say how to break into the world of affordable housing, multi-family real estate with no experience. Now, the reason so typically I spend 10% preparing for the interview, right? Edit, working through, coming with the questions that I know I want to cover during the podcast. Then once we kind of finish recording, I also have Pia from my team help edit all of the podcast episodes. But I usually come back in for the last 10%, meaning I'm trying to figure out how and what should we name this title? And more importantly, what does the trailer look like? So I already gave her some feedback on the trailer to make sure that we're going straight into the story so we can figure out how to best attract people, right? Chaos and 95% occupancy. Occupancy, 95% plus occupancy. How Joe stabilized 80. Boom. From duplex to, I think he said like 500 plus units. I'm gonna look at the exact number. And I like to keep numbers a little bit lower because I also understand that some of our audience members haven't done that. So if I make it sound more achievable, then people will most likely be willing to pay more attention, right? It's from duplex of hundreds of units. We did it. Starting with no experience. Boom. So what I do nowadays in my podcast is I try to make sure all my questions are essentially searchable by normal conversation methods, right? So, high delinquency, then scaling into high value add multi-family add units. Creating new permitted units. I can kind of break up paragraphs. Show breaks down real operations, real tactics. Interesting. Don't underestimate. I almost say he lowballed it. I think he just underestimate your GC, boom. And this is how I kind of get everything kind of ready, right, for the podcast. Let me kind of go through this. All right. So I got all these stuff. So let's go. What this episode is about. Boom. So I have very sort of sections on why the inside story of stabilization work. I say it's learn how Joe established high standards for his community by going as far as coordinating with a local strike force. Why sequencing construction is everything comes to executing well business plan. Hi, sir. How variable version of project in your second project? How a variable bridge loan that full systems overhauls. Honestly, more importantly, you learn from Joe what a person, what a responsible operator, and you learn from Joe what a responsible operator do to get the project to the finish line. Even if you have to go through. Boom. Wireless. With tangible, laughable, so this is how I kind of work through understanding what I'm doing with my podcast to figure out how do I bet. Now, what I don't really need to do is like I try to catch people. And this is so cool, right? I kind of want to pull these little nuggets here so that people can sometimes just read through the text. But this is what Joe had to do. He literally had to drive around the property at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m., just to catch people smoking on the balconies to make sure that they don't do it anymore. Chat to fill in your info. I use chat to do 80% of it. Great question. But I have chat do it so that it optimizes for GEO, which is generative engine optimization, and language model optimization, which is LMO. Now, the most important part for you, if you're creating your own podcast, is you're going to want to figure out what are the different type of questions. Like this question is probably the most important. This section, if you will, is probably the most important part, right? If you outline for ChatGPT or have ChatGPT write the question out, if anybody ever asks a question on ChatGPT, like, hey, how do you stabilize an affordable property with crime, high vacancy, and delinquency? You want your video to show up as essentially the this. There we go. You want your video to show up right here so that you figure out how do I stabilize a property with high crime, high vacancy, and delinquency, right? These are auto items that you want to figure out for how you want to show up, right? What operations does actually change time behavior or tactical steps that I can implement to change tenant behavior, right? you just want to make sure that all these things are essentially written in a way that most people typing in ChatGPT will answer. Because right now, I'm not just optimizing for the podcast, because I believe in the future, everyone's going to be asking questions to ChatGPT. I'm more worried about how do I get my content right now and position it well so that when there are questions about affordable housing, they kind of start referring to our podcast. How can you add units creatively and sequence construction per and not operating income when finding some mistakes, triple value add deals, and how do you avoid them? How should you budget capital or assets about GC estimates? Great. Cool. So what's most important today is I want you to see how I change up the structure. Direct quotes, common questions, episode answers, and just making sure that I clear outline what episode was about. You will see other people where they will say optimize for Geo and Alamo. Always have ChatGPT do that with your transcripts. Video description, put that into the chat so you know that. And I want to show you that you understand exactly what I'm doing. So now you are no longer just optimizing for a video. In the past, people say, oh, the shorter the caption, the better. But I truly believe that right now, more is more. Because if you are learning to ask a question, right, like utilities and transformers, and let me try just on ChatGPT. Important development. Is there a podcast? You just want to start showing up as a source, right? So for me, this is pretty good. I have 3 titles that I'm going to do A/B testing to see what resonates the most with people. And this allows you to figure out how do I show up in ChatGPT. So hopefully this was helpful for everybody. I just want to give you a little insight into what I do. And tomorrow I can probably show you about like how I cut the clips and everything so you guys can understand the whole process. But overall, I start with the YouTube video description because it's probably the most important part. I think a lot of content, a lot of answers in ChatGPT right now comes from YouTube video descriptions, specifically the transcripts. So hopefully this helpful, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 750 going live. Yeah, this is going to be good. All right. Have a good one, everybody. See you tomorrow.